Welcome to the podcast, Ryan Thorpe, the Zoo.
Right. Good to be here.
It's good to have you.
Stoked to be here.
Have you been on a podcast before?
No, only those Instagram livey things I did a couple of years ago in lockdown, but this was very casual.
Got it.
But yeah, no, first podcast.
First podcast.
First video podcast.
Can we start with something super spicy and clickbaity just to get those listeners tuning into this?
Alrighty, let's
Anything
go. Come
to mind?
Oh, geez.
Just to put you on the spot.
Anything clickbaity. My mate reckons I have like 50-cent nipples.
Really?
And he always comments about it when he sees me. He's just like, Ryan, I'm in the presence of greatness. Those 50-cent nips, and we have to just get them out and compare them and, just have a moment. I've never really thought about them I don't think about them much until I see this particular mate. So Aaron, if you're listening.
It's not what I was expecting, but I like it. It's definitely not something that I was predicting at all, actually.
Yeah, there you go.
Does anyone have a third nipple, or is that just a movie type thing, cartoon?
No, I think it does exist.
People have them.
There are the third nips out there.
Imagine that.
And they are to be celebrated. They are to be included.
Being the creative individual that you are,
yep.
I'd expect nothing less.
Hey, I don't know if often even know where the next idea is going to come from. So that it felt like a truly inspired moment. Just let's see what comes up.
It can come through conversation.
Yep,
that's what I've really come to appreciate recently.
Mm-hmm.
Conversation can lead to creativity. It can lead to ideas. It can lead to problems being solved.
Oh, 100%.
Which is wild, because if you go down like the two ends of the spectrum, like logic and numbers and analytics down one end, and then emotion and softness and witchcraft down the other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure where conversation as a strategy falls on that.
Before we get into the episode, I just want to say a big thank you to Tom Hardy for supporting this episode.
Thanks, Dave. I absolutely love what you're doing, and thank you for having me be a part of it.
Tell us a bit about this new sign.
Mate, it's all about the people. I've loved making the move and getting great results for our clients.
Wicked. Let's get into it.
Oh, I think it's huge. Like one of the funny things that I sort of coined just before I even started the zoo was design is relational. And I think at the time I probably didn't even really know what that meant. Probably just liked the sound of it. But the more and more I've gone and developed, I guess, my own skill and my craft, and I guess what it means to be a business owner and a creative and someone that's selling kind of ideas or solutions to ideas or whatever. That idea of, where do ideas come from? Definitely the longer I've gone, the more potent they've been has really stemmed out of that relational, conversational, kind of like just discovering the nuggets within conversation. And I guess that also comes from being a little bit vulnerable. I think often there's quite a big guard up that people have, and it's like, no, I think we need to do this thing that I think we need to do. And then often it's just like, what does that mean? What does that truly mean? Either to you or what are you really wanting to get out of it? Or those are I guess interesting rabbit holes, which often people are afraid to do. I think because it's often seen as like, is this going to waste time? Time is money. Time is money, Dave. But it's like, hey, if we don't actually discover the rabbit hole, we might not find that treasure. And I think for me, that's just become like a more resonating or deeper resonating theme throughout just my own practice, and how I've just found more enjoyment through it. It's, I think 13 years this September that we've been going.
Yeah, right.
And I often look back and go like, man, like most people would go like, I would have had 4 or 5 ventures by now. Like, why are you still doing it? And I think it's because I just really enjoy yarning to people. CYO, my other mate calls it, just the chief yarn officer.
Yes.
But I think I attribute that to just the fact that I love talking to people, and then it's a great way to translate that love and that passion into like, hey, we can help. I can help via some creative ideas or creative execution, or but yeah, the yarning definitely finds the nuggets, those gold nuggets.
A massive thank you to Casbolt's Motorcycles here at 6 Gaston Street for sponsoring the episode of the 10 Million in 10 Years podcast, authorized dealer of Honda and Ducati motorcycles.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I guess if you were to juxtapose that with, say, I guess if anyone here has had a logo or a brand designed, right? Mm-hmm. I think maybe I can't speak on behalf of everyone, but from my own experience, when you're working with a designer and it's just not going well, it's just like the feedback loop or the flywheel, it's just not working. It's just like there's just a lack of understanding on what I've got in my head versus what's being visually created.
Yeah.
And I think if I look back on that, it's probably a case when there hasn't been enough discussion. It's just been like, can you make me a cool looking logo?
Yeah.
And that's it. Or here's some like bullet points, like cut and dry factual bits of information.
Yeah, definitely.
But no soul or no like insight into actually what you do or what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think there's definitely exceptions to the rule, and I've sometimes done some of my best work just on a whim, and I would definitely say that's not the norm. But yeah, my consistently best work, my most consistent, should I say, best work is it's always just been, hey, that we've actually developed a bigger structure around actually, just continuing to just chew the fat and to simmer. I think that idea of like simmering again on things and not just being always reactive, to being like, okay, yeah, that sounds good, let's go. That sounds interesting. What else? Or yes, and we've even developed a bit of a tool through some design thinking workshops, and it's this whole idea of like yes and just kind of just trying to build on an idea, or even maybe like yes but Gugan will probably hate me saying that, but just continuing those conversations just to explore what they could mean, because something that feels right now might not feel right tomorrow, or in some cases in a few days or even a week. You might, there's been a few moments where I've gone, mate, I've got the idea, like just 100%, 120%, just been so confident, and then started executing it and gone, this is just the worst idea. Like now that I'm actually putting pen to paper, kind of going like, no, this is completely the wrong direction. And I remember a particular job where I basically 180'd it. So when the client actually came back to look at the concepts, I had to explain, like, actually, I think that initial direction was actually it was going to be a disaster if we went that way, and here's why, and sort of unpack that, but then revealed a new journey. And it was actually because I sat down longer to really ponder their story and their journey. And what made sense then was just completely irrelevant, but a new story actually unfolded after just simmering and giving it. I guess it already was simmering, and that's probably why as soon as I started to do that other idea, it just became really apparent really quickly that, hey, actually the right direction is over here. But it's only obvious now that I've journeyed a little bit, and but I don't know, the creative process it's a bit of a love-hate journey, because sometimes when you think you've got it, you haven't, and then when you haven't got it, then you've got it, and then there's sometimes where you're in the in-between. You're like, where is it? But the simmering thing has also been a reoccurring thing.
Yeah.
Just like let it.
It's so interesting, even just hearing you talk about that and how design for one particular type of output, say graphic design, branding, it's just how crazy it is that it's priced based on hourly rates historically. And hopefully less and less now, but still to somewhat the case, right?
Yeah. And I think that's a real hard road for people to navigate, especially when you're starting off. I think often I'll chat with guys that are starting off and it's like, what should my hourly rate be? And I'm often just like, what do you think you're worth? Do you think you're worth $5 an hour? Do you think you're worth $40 an hour? Do you think you're worth $140 an hour? What do you think you're worth? What do you think your work looks like? Or how fast can you do something? Or it's a real interesting one that you've almost got to play that guessing game to start off with, and it's, I don't know, I think it's a fun deep end to almost be like, I don't know, man, and that's why I almost throw it out there, like, what do you think you're worth? It's usually like, okay, if you can't figure it out, maybe it's 60 or 80 when you're starting off. But yeah, you got to get some runs on the board, and you got to take some knocks, and you got to have some people to just tell you straight to your face, like, what are you thinking, mate? That's taking too long. That's too much. You know, I've even had like T's and C's just like crossed, like literally 2 or 3 pages of T's and C's just crossed out, and me just sort of standing there going like, yeah, or what do those mean? I'm like, I actually have no idea. Like, I just had some credit control company write them up, seemed good, and that, you know, there's a moment to learn in that. And I was like, actually, these are way too long, way too complicated. I don't even know what they mean. Let's talk to someone who can kind of explain that to me, so that when I have another scenario like this, I can actually have a proper conversation with a client. But yeah, man, you got to take those knocks to figure out like where you fit, and you know what is a good price point, and then you just learn fast, right?
Yeah. It's just interesting how. Actually, let's just pause this. It's okay, we're back. It is a delicate balance, but I guess it's like what we were talking about earlier about building proof and establishing proof. I was meaning actually more from the client paying for it, paying the hourly rate. Mm-hmm. But, you know, an idea or a design could come in 10 minutes, or it could take 20 hours, right? And it's such a very unpredictable type thing. And it's not to say that more time is better either, right?
Yeah. Again, I think you sort of, you know, you can get what you pay for as well at the end of the day. Like, you might get a cheaper rate. But yeah, someone can still spend a number of weeks on something super subpar. I mean, one of the things I've always enjoyed, and it goes hand in hand with that design thinking space, is sometimes you actually just need to, even if it might produce a subpar concept, but just get something out, get it done, and either present it or move on to concept 2. I think we procrastinate on, you know, like especially in the early days creatives, you know, we can almost be too artistic to start off with, where sometimes it's just like, hey, clients, you know, we're on the clock here. Client wants some kind of thing to look at. Let's not be pedantic now. Let's just more talk concepts, big picture. Hey, what do you think of this? Hey, what do you think of that? So we can kind of see where they are. But again, that just comes with experience, and then again, like if you're paying someone that's charging you top dollar, I guess there'll be different strategies around that. But from my point of view, I'm really comfortable with just sort of being like, hey, I'm open to you seeing a little bit of what's behind the magic curtains a little bit. And it's not all the time. Sometimes it's inappropriate. I think, again, like one of the other nuances is just reading your clients, learning how to read, you know, where you're at or where they're at. Some people just become too pedantic, which then blows out a budget on nonsense. But again, it just comes down to that relational aspect, just being like, hey, I think we're spending way too much time on the detail here. Let's just remember this is big picture, and go from there. Or I think, but again, just communication, eh?
Yeah, communication really sticks out to me as a key word there.
Yeah.
100%.
It's the easiest thing. It's one of those like life's mysteries of like, it's the easiest thing to do, but it's the hardest thing to do as well.
Yeah.
Especially when something's going downhill, you almost don't want to pull your head out of the sand. It's like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. No, it's not. Just give them a call.
It's never okay.
Yeah. As soon as you're like feeling that moment, it's like, let's just have a quick honest conversation. It's 99% actually it's fine. Like, and then carry on. But yeah.
I was talking to someone just before about the same theory, right? That we are so prone to avoiding those things that we know we need to do.
Yep.
We're just not very good at being accountable, generally speaking. which is weird because I do believe that most of us know what we need to do most of the time to get where we want to go.
Yep.
I don't think it's overly difficult. Like, it's not the most complicated thing.
Yeah, it's interesting, eh? Like, I've almost likened that a little bit to the running thing. So I was out running with a buddy, and we were talking about that whole, the mind. It's almost like the mind knows one thing, and the body knows something else. And again, like that idea of accountability, it's almost like the body's kind of keen to be fit, to be healthy, to be like match ready, but the mind is always just like, oh, but you could not go today. You know, this bed's pretty comfy. So you got this body that wants to take responsibility, but this mind's in like safety mode. Like, oh, but you might fall over, you might hurt an ankle. You know, you've got a big week coming up. You know, don't you want to not potentially be hurt or be tired?
Yeah, I guess it's a self-preservation type system, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think it has all these interesting crossovers to just life in general. And we've often been talking about like how do you marry those two things up a little bit better, where it's just like actually the more we've got up and exercised, the better the mind feels. So like, hey mind, like actually you're getting some benefits out of this as well, you know. and they both sort of seem to have a bit more of an equilibrium, so that the mind and the body are a bit more in sync to being like, yeah man, like let's go.
This makes sense. Yeah.
We're both in tune and ready to go.
Do you think it's somewhat to do also with the fact that we've found ourselves in this environment where there is a whole bunch of temptations? Like there's tasty food, there's calorie dense food, there's booze, there's all these things that are available at our fingertips.
Definitely. I think choice. There's always just so much choice, and it's just hard to just I guess that's where that idea of a bit of a challenge can help you put you back on the course. Or we talk about like that 75 hard challenge was really interesting, and just almost putting a bit more structure into that idea of kind of what am I doing with my time, what are some of those choices that actually could be bad choices, maybe they're good, but maybe they're bad, and let's put a bit of a framework to test that. Almost think that like that's quite a helpful thing to do when we're even just trying to figure out like what are the distractions, or how do I whether it's how do I be less distracted, or how do I be more responsible, or whatever it is. Sometimes it's hard to know how to start that. So even for me, like this year, that 75 hard challenge was just like it was an all-encompassing challenge and structure to just wipe the slate clean a little bit.
Yeah, good reset.
Yeah. And that was a really, probably in hindsight, it was really ambitious to just go straight into it, because I was all keen for it. I was like, yeah man, you should get everyone should be doing this, straight off the bat.
That's right.
And then I think probably about 13 days in, I realized it's 75 hard for a reason.
Yeah, it's easy to underestimate it. I think having done it a couple of times now and spoken to so many people that have either done it, tried it, attempted it, gotten partway through, it's funny how some people find it to be no problem at all. Mm-hmm. Typically they're younger, and so they maybe don't have quite the number of responsibilities and time commitments as others. But it definitely gets me when I get someone that doesn't find it to be a big deal. Just cruise through it.
Yeah. I think it's just such a big reset, and it's such a good challenge, because it really makes you, again, probably one of the hindsights coming out of it was it really makes you value some things, like the idea of planning. We'd often go like our best days, because I did it with a friend again, our best days were, cool, what are we doing tomorrow? Okay, we'll do that, we'll attack that, we'll do it at that time, whether we were doing it together or separately. And it was really interesting that even though you might have plan A, naturally plan B, if plan A didn't work, plan B just sort of formed itself. Okay, I'm not doing it at 5 a.m., but I'll do it at 12 after lunch. As opposed to no plan, it was like you just kind of ran into the day almost just like You didn't really know whether to look left, right, straight.
No.
You're like, okay, I've got to do these things. I've got to do exercise at some point. Okay. Yep. I've got to, now this other things come up. And it was just like, it would just, you'd run into so many roadblocks. We really learned that, just that simple thing of planning, or even just have that moment the night before, or even the day before, to just be like, cool, what am I doing? Just to give a bit of direction, a bit of clarity, so that when you're in the moment, it's not uphill, foggy. It's like, no, there is some like some distance I can see. There's a plan that we're attacking.
Yeah, it's a great reset I've found for people that are maybe a bit off for whatever reason. I've suggested it to a few people recently, actually, with the intent that they might not even finish. They likely won't finish it, but just as a recalibration, as a thing to do for even a week. You don't have to finish it, and that's totally okay. I think that's like one of the misconceived ideas about it, is that you're somehow a failure if you don't complete it, but not at all.
I think if you just give it your all, it's that classic thing. Someone else was talking to me about a challenge, and so-and-so in the office is cheating because they figured out how to do such and such. And it's just like, yeah, man, like so many of their challenges in life are, even if you fail, if you're doing it properly, you're still winning. If you're cheating, you're just cheating yourself. Like, let's be honest. You might win the actual challenge, but like when people know about it, it's just like, wow, they actually didn't even do it properly. Like, what a waste of time. Like when the competition's all done now and life carries on, I think that's then almost like that idea of the legacy. What's the legacy after this? It's like, are you just going to cheat yourself more throughout life and not really ever really challenge yourself properly?
Yeah.
Or you're going to step into something that's super challenging and just look back on it and go, man, far out, I dominated that and I really sucked at that. But wow, that was super interesting. I learned something deep, and again, like how often do we really learn those or explore those deep sort of pockets? And
well, I think one reason is that you are unable to simulate it. You've got to do it. You've got to do that hard thing. You've got to challenge yourself, and I don't think it can be achieved by talking about it. Yeah. And I think, again, like back to what's natural and what we find that we've evolved is that we don't like danger. We like safety and comfort.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, totally, man.
And so I guess that's why it's unnatural, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny, those moments when you do push yourself, like, so memorable, right? Like, I remember doing 75 hard. It was one of the first weeks, and I'd got like in my mind that I was going to do a Rapaki walk, and I remember just the weather being atrocious, rain, and
really?
It was one of those moments, right, where it's like, oh shit, this is actual rain, like this is really raining. But I still remember it to this day. Like, it rained the whole way up, the whole way down, and it was like a sliding doors moment where it would have been really easy to have just gone to the gym or not done the outdoor workout that second, but I did it and I remember it.
Yeah.
Fondness.
Exactly. So how interesting is it that the more challenging the moment, the better the memory is?
Pretty much. Direct correlation.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just like, and I guess it kind of correlates to a lot of things in life, whether it's like a project you're trying to do or even like a project we might be doing. Like, oh yeah, this could be the easy option. Like, oh, clients paid, quick little option, done. That was easy. Like, no sense of challenge in that. No remembering anything.
No.
Or, hey, we thought we should do this, but what if? And I love that sort of statement. Like, just sit back. What if the world didn't exist how we know it? And like, I often talk about one of the projects we did was with a client. I call it the 4 meter banana. And it was a client of like, came to us and said, well, I've been working with Dan for quite a while. And he's like, Ryan, me and the powers that be, we've often talked about like doing something a bit different. And but the reality was, every time something different was pitched, it was usually like, oh, no.
Whoa.
That seems a little bit too crazy. Like, will it work?
Yeah.
And that's always that. It always comes down to that. We're paying dollars, and will it work?
What's the ROI on that 4 meter banana?
What is it? Yeah. What is it? What is it? And yeah, so it was like, right, here's an idea, again, from yarning away. And I was like, man, what if we just made a 4 meter long banana and hung it up in this trade show, got it suspended, it just became this beacon. Let's go for the beacon. Like, why not? This is what you guys do. It's not the specific thing, but it's the idea. The idea is like, hey, we do fresh fruit. I also did flowers, but it was like, let's keep it simple. But yes, and so he took this idea back to the powers that be, and again, it was the usual scenario of like, what do you mean? Like that just sounds a bit silly. Like what? Or just sound, yeah. Again, it was just, that sounds crazy. No, we're probably not. Dan was like, no, we're gonna do this. So he basically had enough of hearing that same conversation as well, which is great for me. So he fought for the idea. And he came back to me and he said, look, Ryan, this one's going to be a hard one to get over the line, but I think I've got it. I've convinced them that this is a good idea. And cool, what's the next steps? So I got a mate of mine. I was like, cool, Jared, I've got a project for you, mate. This is going to be great. Jared was like, always up for a bit of a challenge. This is the guy I started the skateboarding brand with, Gooseboards. He's just a bit of a wizard in terms of making anything out of anything. And again, it was a moment of like, I've got the dream team, Avengers Assemble. And so we ended up making this big bloody banana. The warehouse got broken into like a few days before the trade show. Luckily enough, it wasn't too crazy, but things got graffitied. But fortunately enough, things were wrapped and they graffitied the back of this interior design thing that we'd made, and it wasn't going to face the client, the trade show. So there was a few little moments, a few wobbly moments, but it ended up actually being one of their best trade shows. He was just like, look, we simplified the branding messaging, and it all became about like, you're coming here, it's about fresh. We plastered pretty much the most minimal branding and messaging they'd ever done, but coupled with this banana was just this great cut through moment for the whole trade show. He was like, everything there was just your standard banners, your standard like eyelidded things, your pull-ups, your flyers, your this and that. And he was like, we were the only one that actually like pushed the envelope somewhat, and it became a great talking point, great icebreaker. Some clients would start off, they'd come in literally cracking up talking to us, and then we'd communicate, we'd yarn, and then the conversation would develop and lead where it needed to lead. But that was one of our most successful trade shows to date. And even for me to hear that leading up, I was just like, I think a couple of days before I was going, I suppose, is this the right idea? I'm banking on it. I'm pretty sure it's going to be awesome. And again, it was this tension of like, creative ideas are like challenging to put out there, right?
Yes.
Because it is a part of your soul. And to me, like the idea of marketing is like, sometimes when you do these scary things, you just don't actually know.
No.
So there's a lot of trust. And there's like a, this is different. I'm a 70-30. I'm pretty sure it's going to work, as opposed to, we can do some banners and that'll probably 90-10 work. But again, like, does it work if it wasn't that memorable? So that 70-30, that bit of uncertainty post trade show was actually like 150% in terms of like, we absolutely smashed that out of the park. Yeah. Well, it went from an unsure bet to a safe bet to just, man, like, so glad we tried that. Now we know. And I think one of the hurdles is now we know. So often, and I guess that you got to take some of those risks to actually know whether something was worth it or not. And I think that's usually the hindrance of like, that sounds cool, but how do we know? Or it's like hearing somebody talking about a review about a bit of software or a movie or whatever the thing is. It's often just like, okay, they thought it was crap, or they thought it was great, or is it right for me? I don't know. I don't want to spend the money, or I don't want to take the time because I might lose something, but then I might gain something. And I guess it's up to you, that risk tolerance. But once you know something, for better or for worse, I feel like you're in such a better position to just be like, wow, okay, I've extended myself somewhat.
But you're right though, the context or the reference data that you're making that decision on often is so meaningless, right? Like one person's opinion on a restaurant, like, and the person that's prone to writing a bad review, do you really want to be listening to their information anyway?
Yeah.
Probably not. I was about to subscribe to this running app on the weekend, and I thought, I haven't been a paid member for a while. See if there's any competitors that have emerged. And so like I find myself going down this vortex of Reddit feeds, right?
Oh, right, yep.
And just like, what am I doing here? Like it's $40 a month. Like just get it. Like it's not worth taking into account too much data here.
Yep. We're just in the age of too much.
Too much.
It's a great time to be alive, yet it's the worst time to be alive, in my opinion.
A lot of noise.
There's so much noise. And again, like, you just, like, people are afraid. I think we're often, and I include myself in this, to take that step of like, oh, this feels a bit different, feels a bit wrong. Like, what if it is wrong? What will people say? But the reality is, like, no one even knows, or no one even cares. It's you that's gone through this experience in this moment. I mean, we had on our cars growing up. I used to do a bit of signwriting, so I don't know, there were probably about 20 of us at one point. We all had "comfort's overrated" on the back of our cars.
Overrated.
Yeah,
I like it.
And it was just a great conversation piece, but it was just such a good reminder to be in those places of like, ooh, am I making the right decision? And it was usually like, cool, if you're in that space, at least you're doing something. You're trying to figure something out that feels a bit foreign or feels a bit different, or
it's a great indicator.
It's a great indicator of something. And I think a lot of people often talk into that space of like, oh, if something feels uncomfortable, it's either like, this is good uncomfortable, or this is bad uncomfortable. Try and figure that out fast, I guess.
Yeah,
could be the strategy. and I guess as you get older and you do that enough, I think you do get better at actually fine-tuning that craft.
Yes.
A lot more, a lot better. And then I bring that back to design. Similar thing, like, I'll just smash out a bunch of ideas, and I'll sort of usually have an idea of, that's probably, that's just not even relevant. But that was fun. That sort of ticked a box, but that was probably more my box than their box.
Right.
And again, like, didn't spend too much time on that, but okay, that's out of the way. Okay, here we go here. Oh, okay, yeah, that's feeling right. Okay, ooh. And it's this interesting tacit ability, I think, as you journey further down the rabbit hole of having talked and experienced all these different things that we do, that ability to, I think, hone in on potentially that right path becomes a little better. Still a bit murky, but I guess the confidence walking into it is a lot more sure-footed. And I think as a result, you start to probably hit a few more bullseyes than completely way off the charts. Yeah,
and I guess as you say, like the key is to get something that you can iterate from, or it's a bit like the concept of an anti-goal. Like, it's quite easy to come up with a list of things that you don't want to happen, right? But that sometimes helps form what the actual goal is that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, well, I don't want to be like poor and overweight and unhappy. So probably the opposite of that would be good. Yeah.
Wow.
Start there.
Do people make anti-goal lists?
I don't know, probably. Maybe. I mean, I use it as a methodology if I'm struggling to get clear on something. So if I'm unclear on where I want to be in, say, a certain amount of time. So if I'm like looking at the next quarter and it's like, okay, well, where do I want to be at the end of March next year, for example?
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I definitely wouldn't want to be talking about hiring the EA and not having an EA.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, cool. That's something.
Yeah.
And just go through the sort of list.
Yeah, nice. I guess it helps.
Helps firm things up, I find.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. It's a weird one. I got it off of, definitely didn't come up with it myself. It was borrowed.
But that's what this is all about, right? Like, everything's, and I think that's why I enjoy working alongside you, or with you, is just that ability of like discovering these nuggets along the way that, we've essentially borrowed and figured out bits and pieces or molded said thing into our own version of it, and again, you've got your own learning to go with it, right?
Totally.
And that's interesting. and then it's up to me to go, ooh, do I want to borrow that and then do something with it? Because it's easy to hear something and then another thing to turn it into your own thing and see where it goes.
Yeah. I mean, even just talking this morning about different technology and software.
Yeah.
With the huge amount of options out there and just what feels good and what's going to be right for you or me or anyone else.
Yeah.
But again, it's just trialing it. But I guess the difficulty is that you've almost got to invest a certain amount to understand if it's the right one.
Yeah.
So
time, man.
Time and energy.
Yep. Time and energy.
Time, energy, and together.
Keep it together.
Tell us about the new Together brand, Ryan.
Yeah. Well, Together. Yeah. Essentially, I mean, in a way, it's inspired from the coaching with you, but also a bit of a journey and an evolution of the zoo. Together is basically a brand coach idea. And that's evolved out of really enjoying the relational aspect of design, a very together process with client, and wanting to do that, I guess, more, I don't know if intimately is the right word, but deeper, and turn a lot of typically monetary transactions more into deeper conversational, so that the monetary transaction feels almost better spent because there's better time invested. And also, I really love working collaboratorily. Is that a word? Collaboratively. There we go.
I knew what you mean.
I don't know where that word was going. This is becoming this really long word. Oh, wow.
You couldn't pull that one back, could you?
Yeah. I was like, this is going for it. Here we go. Join the freight train of letters. Yeah, I really love the idea of collaboration. Excuse me, and just the power of tapping into, you're really good at this, and if I put that idea with that idea, or your skill with my skill, or your skill with their skill, man, just the level of where this could go to is just way more than I could take it. And that's a bit of a process that I've just really come to really enjoy. And so, yeah, this idea of doing things together with people that I'm working with, and then doing things just at a deeper level with clients, just started to resonate more. And it was actually out of a bit of a brand refresh that I was wanting to do, but the idea has basically just evolved into why don't we separate it out so that there's actually time for the yarns. And what I've realized is the zoo is very much an output driven entity, and I love it for that. And I love the evolving idea that actually Together was an opportunity to work with clients at a much deeper, more interesting but very intentional level of, hey, let's sit down and talk about all those things that are often on the to-do list but never get done because it's just like we're all running around like headless chickens. I think New Zealand, we're pretty good at that because we're often, a lot of us are running small to medium businesses, and everyone's wearing 4 or 5, 6, 7 hats, and yeah, trying to get things done at a certain level just becomes a bit of a never, almost like, oh, I'd love to be there, I'd love to be doing that, but I just can't get to it. And so this is an attempt to really be like, let's put some kind of a dollar value on it, but at least we're actually making time to really unpack and develop, and then also put into task form, hey, let's do that, and let's put a date on that. And who's going to do that? Is it the zoo? Is it so-and-so? Is it Ben down the road? Is it, it doesn't have to be me, but it has to be someone. And that to me is like a really, really good place to be for clients, where you feel like you're actually developing more of what you're actually building rather than just the doing, and feeling like, oh, this could just be better if only I could get a moment to unpack this idea, or to have somebody who's excited about unpacking it. And I think I really enjoyed the process I've had with you with soundboarding, because often the idea is there, or even in a way a bit of the know-how, but we just chuck it back in the bag. So that intentional aspect to, hey, this brand coach is coming in and actually helping you grow your vision, and for me personally, hopefully make it more interesting. Really get down to some of the nitty gritty. Those things that maybe you started it for, and now like I'm just like, I'm so far away from that rabbit hole. I can't get back to it.
Yes.
I'm like, let's go back there, man. Like, let's spend an hour today going back there and talking about like why it was started, or but not everybody has the dream of doing wild and wonderful things. Maybe it's something else, but I feel like my job is to figure out what those little extra things are and really yarn and unpack them and explore them in an unbiased setting of like, yes, a website is the perfect thing you need to do. So it might not be. Again, like let's take a step back, let's simmer. Are we at the bottom of the hill here? Are we at the top of the hill? How much time have we got? Is it really a problem? Or do we think it's a problem, or somebody told you it's a problem? I think we were talking earlier again today, and it was just that thing of like, okay, so someone said something to you, and the initial response is, yeah, something's wrong. But stepping back, maybe not all problems need to be like drastically changed. We just need to take a step back and look, maybe is the communication right? Were we clear in what we wanted to achieve, or are we actually on the same page, or is that what we need to be doing? All those sorts of questions. Often feels like we don't have time to really figure those things out, even though it might only take half an hour, 40 minutes, an hour. Like in the grand scheme of things, even if you spent the whole day or even the whole week, in my opinion, not that you need to do that all the time, but in the grand scheme of things, it's such a small amount of time to at least gone like, let's just put some focus on this problem, to really just not feel like we're in a rush or feel like we're in a one-sided conversation, we've given space to this moment so that we can actually figure some good things out and start to just clear the way a bit and separate out a few things. But yeah, so I guess a long story short, like, yeah, that's a bit of what Together is and shaping itself into. It's still early days, and I guess it's 13 years in the making, and it's now just starting to really put that new thing into a bit of a shape and a form. Part of one of the things I like about again, I've collaborated with an artist to do the logo, and one of the bits I really love is that you've got these like two kind of nondescript characters going up these stairs, and it's kind of just into this like this little void, and to me, like, I just love how it really sums up the journey that is kind of life, but also marketing as well. It's like, let's go on this journey, and again, it's through all these experiences that I've had, and hopefully you as the client have had. Let's walk into this void with a sense of like, we think we know where we're going. Not we do know where we're going. It's like we think we know where we're going, but let's go in and explore the void. And like, it just gets me super, super pumped as to that idea of just exploring and having the yarns and just seeing where they take you.
Yeah, I'm pumped for it. I love it. I just see it as a really practical method for working together. I see it as a way that you can be like both a trusted resource, a sounding board, part project manager, part creative director.
Yeah.
Taking everything that you've learned and gone through in the last 13 years of being in the marketing world, but then also like embracing new technology and like collaborating in a new way.
Yeah.
Like we were just saying before with Notion, just how easy it makes it to share ideas and to both be on the same page with the client. It's so good.
Yeah. And I think like finding ways to make it that tango. I think currently the idea of using Notion and giving the client like a more transparent place to see what's going on, and probably even see what's going on in my head. And for me, even just to see what's going on in their head. I just love that idea of, hey, it's actually not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. And again, I think the best work that I've done has often been, clients got an idea and a perspective and a bit of a story, and I come into that with ideas, some perspectives, and some stories, and we don't clash, but there's this almost this marrying up of hey, let's figure this out together. I don't have the answer, you don't have the answer, but we've got collective experience in our own industries to actually for me to get clear on what you're trying to do, and that helps me interpret that in my creative space and in whether it's execution or but there's this real toing and froing, and again it's an exciting I think development in the industry space of like, hey, you're the marketing guy, sort this problem out, go.
Yeah.
But no, this is your product. You tell me about it.
Yeah.
Tell me more. I want to hear more from you, and then I'll start talking. I want to hear you get excited, or I want to hear you get super frustrated because of this is not bloody working. Because I want to hear the because, or where are those pain points, or again I want to feel the hurt. Not that it gives me joy, but it gives me direction. It gives me an idea of just whether it's your own just how to almost re-engage the process a bit with you, or just really find again like, well, obviously we didn't find that you haven't found that nugget yet, or we've just been putting that idea in the wrong place. Like, why don't we do that? Why don't we put it over there? Oh okay. Wow, let's try that. But yeah, I want the dance. It's the uncomfortable, vulnerable kind of dance. But like all relationships, they start off a bit awkward, but as you get to know each other, it's like actually cool. I know a bit more about you, you know a bit more about me, and I think again this comes back to that whole thing of design is relational. We can really mold two worlds to present something. Or to come up with something that's just a little bit special, or a bit more pointed, or whatever the case might be. Hopefully just in a better place. Yeah.
Yeah, it really makes me think of how much efficiency there is from long-term relations with marketing and branding. Just how, like, if you were to chop and change.
Yeah.
Oof,
Yeah.
it's almost like having to expend so much more energy. Over and over again, right?
Yeah.
Versus, getting in a committed relationship. In due course, obviously, but getting in together with someone that you can work and explore these ideas, and then like delegate responsibility. I just love it. I think it's so practical. Yeah. And I guess if you were to go in like a bigger business context, it's like the term fractional. Chief marketing officers come about before, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, definitely.
And that like most small and medium-sized businesses, there are people that are wearing multiple hats, but to have an outsider or an outside agency that can help provide like both the sounding board plus like that ability to direct resourcing and to provide suitable vendors. Yeah. So good.
Yeah, totally. And I think like, and I guess hopefully with a bit of a long-term strategy, but an iterative one, it just becomes something that can grow or shrink, but still with a level of intensity over the long term that, provides some just really good insights, and that ability to scale it or scale it bigger or scale it back. And then even to introduce other partners again, like, hey, cool, this is getting to a level where we need X. Let's bring in that person for a while, or whatever the case might be. But yeah, I think that ability for people to feel like they've got a hand, they've got a partner in a way, a fractional partner. It's almost like a funny way to, it's like part-time relationships.
I think that's where the analogy ends.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, no. This is it's a good one. It's still a long term. It's like we're breaking up.
But we're just seeing other people potentially.
Yeah. But yeah, like I like that the idea of it being fractional, because it's like I want it to be what you need for the season that you're in. If you're in growth mode, let's spend a bit more time. If we've got to a good place, hey, let's scale it back and let's let it run its course. Because again, like I think you need ebbs and flows. I don't think you always need to be at the same speed on something. It's nice to actually have a period of time where you're working, you're pushing, and you're really crafting something, and then you need that time to see the fruit, or to see what those thoughts and decisions have actually done, so that you can kind of come back again with a cadence of, cool, that worked, that didn't work, let's try that, maybe that didn't quite land, like why, and bite it off at chunks that kind of just make sense to the season or the period where you're trying to figure something out pretty intensely or intentionally. I
like that. Big question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If we're sitting down here in a year's time, where are you going to be with Together, the zoo, running, life in general? This is a time capsule, right? It's something that I love to do is make some predictions for 12 months, because it's quite a long way away. Like if you look back to this time last year, a lot of water is under the bridge since then.
Jeez Louise.
So,
I think running, definitely a lot more. I don't know, a few more challenges on the board. So one of the things is to have run to the city from up north. Cycling as well, having done a big days, seen a few hills, seen a few sights that just speak to the soul. Cycling over to Littleton and over there onto that backside and figuring out another way back, and definitely want to see some big days put down on the running and the cycling. I think with the zoo, probably a bit more hands off, or a lot more hands off. I want to say at least 50 to 60% hands off, and more, again, just more collaboration going on with the creative output, so that I can be better. I guess my time and my energy is better spent with the ideation side and the strategic side, and that relational development for Together. So definitely want to see some really cool journeys on the board with some great clients, and doing some great works, having made some lofty ideas happen. Hopefully encouraged people to step out a lot more, and be encouraged to do so. Even if things haven't worked, have communicated appropriately, so as to have been like, what are we taking from that to make things better? But I'm only going to get that if I push some clients. So hopefully knowing when to have pushed, and have pushed at the right time, and done some interesting things. And I think something that came up earlier was just being kind of like life ready. Some of the running for me has just been like, I don't want to just have goals to be the reason why I'm doing things. I think for me, like I've mentioned before, like I'm not very financially motivated. I'm probably quite adventurous, sort of uncomfortable motivated, and for me that brings a sense of growth and a sense of challenge, and a sense of readiness for just a lot of moments that are just like, we don't know what to do here. What should we do? Like, I love living in that space, and I want to continue to be excited to be living in those spaces and in those challenging moments. So I think for me, it was like the idea of being like running to run a marathon just doesn't excite me, but running just because I want to run. And then if someone says to me, like, if you said to me, hey, Ryan, it's the 14th today, do you want to run a marathon on the 15th tomorrow? Like, yeah, man, let's go. I love that idea of just being ready, and then that translating into just business. Again, like, Ryan, there's a problem. What do we do? Like, this needs to be solved in an hour. That excites the shit out of me. I'm like, let's go, man. Let's dig real deep right now and go. And so like hopefully just continue to exercise that part of life and the brain and the body, so that it's just able to enjoy that stress rather than be depleted by it.
Love that.
Ooh, here we go.
That's good. That's a good soundbite there. Wow. Yeah, that's really good.
Are the mics on? Yeah,
Mics are
you
on.
got that one?
Yeah, mics are hot.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I like it. I like where you're going with this. This is good. It's been a real pleasure to work with you with the new alt branding, with the new like Notion setup. Just talking through the process, it's quite a different experience. So very, very happy.
Yeah, cool.
Even just taking off a few things, right? Like the presentation, booklet there, the business cards, the email signature, conquesting that. That's a good example, actually, of something that was a bit difficult.
Yeah, seemingly simple,
but yet quite challenging.
And everyone's got an opinion of how they've solved it or cracked it.
Yeah, but you have indeed cracked it.
Yeah, I think we've gotten to a good place with it, haven't we?
Yeah.
It's so funny, I think, again, I love the dialogue of, I think I'm onto something here, and then also like handing it over to you to have a bit of a play with and a crack with. Again, it wasn't a process of like, I hold all the keys or all the answers, but it was like, here's something I've tried.
Yeah.
This could work. And even through the various conversations we've had, and we arrived at a really cool place because we'd been figuring it out together.
Yeah.
And I know that probably doesn't sound like something everybody wants to do. I guess you don't, maybe as a business owner, always want to be like, oh, I have to have another conversation with Ryan because we need to figure this thing out. And I don't think everything's like that, but some things definitely are. And some things are better because of it. That was a great example of just figuring out the battlefield that is just bloody browsers and internet and software solutions. And is something hosted here? Is it hosted there? Is it this color? Is it a system font? Is it a dark mode compatible? Is it a
Where do you host this image? It became a game though, didn't it? At least in my mind it did.
Yeah. No,
it was almost a comical game, and that, I don't really want to give up on this.
Yeah. It became a little mini marathon. It became a half marathon.
It did. It really did. Yeah.
And we were both keen. We were ready.
Yeah. We both asked some people. We both did a bit of research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we came out more with more clarity from the research, but it definitely helped, I think, narrow a few things down, and ultimately to finding a bit of a solution there.
Yeah, I think on the surface it looks like a really simple or like innocent type thing, but I think if you peel back a few layers and look at what that was as a challenge and as a way of working together, I think that tells a totally different pitch. It's a different story. It would have been really easy to have given up or to have settled for like a plain text or just something like super boring.
Yeah.
But no, perseverance.
Yeah, perseverance. It plays off, eh?
Yeah. Pays off.
Yeah.
And I think as like together grows and develops further, I think there'll be plenty more of that. I think there'll be plenty more things that you don't know the answer to. But the client, you don't need to know all the answers.
Yeah.
And I think that really
well, it's the meaning of life, Dave.
Is it?
We don't
42?
know the answers.
Oh, we don't know the answers.
Except 42.
42. I thought it was 42.
Yeah. I think it's the great illusion, but we can do things that nudge us closer. And again, like there's nothing better than having direct experience to know, to having walked some of those things, so that you yourself can say, I've tried that, I've done that. Because even the right answer today is not the right answer tomorrow.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
And for me, the hindsight is, again, like stay agile, like keep going for those runs.
Yeah.
Keep making it about, the challenge, the life challenge, the business, the greater business challenge is just being fit so that you can pivot when you need to pivot. So you can say, I thought I was right, but I was wrong, when you need to say, I thought I was right, but I was wrong. So that you can then just get onto the right thing, or the other thing, or the new thing, or the thing you feel uncomfortable with a bit of a clear conscience. I think like there never is a right answer, but there are ways to explore those things and find out if they are the right answers for the time being. I've had campaigns, that have gone like total gangbusters, and it's like, man, we've just hit the nail on the head here. Yet another season and that campaign's just been a complete flop. And it was because it just hit a particular, like one client just it was actually the client that had the idea, hey, I reckon we should do this because, it's the season that we're in. I feel like essentially my audience is going to resonate with this. And I was like, great, let's massage something up. We put a campaign out there, went out there, and honestly, it was like just about 1,000% on top of usual net growth or whatever. I'm not a wordsmith, but then that same approach didn't work again. It was because we were trying to, let's try and do that thing again in the same way.
Right.
And it was just like, it's not going to work. It's a different moment. It's a different need. Let's take some of the learnings out of that and start to apply that. And it's, you're not always going to have like golden egg moments. Some of them are just going to be bread and butter moments. But I think, again, coming back to the conversations, that's where we find those golden egg moments of like, wow, let's put that in the bag of, we need to do that because that sounds right. And actually, let's not put it in the bag. Let's do that. What are we doing to work towards that? Because if we don't do that now, someone else is probably going to do that. And you're going to be the second across the line as opposed to the first. And it's, to me, like those moments where like, actually this is worth it. This is where we're having fun and doing business.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons for the podcast actually is to have interesting conversations and to see where they go. Sometimes it's not always possible to ask people to have conversations. But the podcast is an excuse. It's a reason. And especially like with the anniversary editions, that's like a great way to keep that continuity going. And so it just made logical sense to throw some predictions into it.
Yeah.
If the person's coming back anyway.
Yep.
We may as well see how they checked out.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great way to just look back and just see what you're thinking, see what's changed. Almost in a way like make sure you've grown. Or just be like, you know what, I had no idea what I was bloody talking about, and that was only a year ago. And I'm okay with that.
One of the things that came away from one of the mastermind events recently was a bit of an audit on your life, right? If you look back at a year to date, and if you're not better off ahead, if you're not like doing better or happier or improved in some way, maybe stop what you're doing, maybe discontinue or like reassess. And I was like, it's so logical, but why have I not done that throughout my life?
Well, it's hard to sometimes, and we talk a little bit about like the likes of Strava and how if you're consistent at just putting some information in, it's actually a helpful tool. Looking back, say, what was I doing a year ago, as to what I'm doing now, and how helpful or interesting is that to look back on? I guess it can still be independent of the obsessive social rabbit hole that is anything to do with scrolling and liking and kudosing, but at the same time, like what a cool way to also have the approach of actually this is a great collection of what I've been up to for a period of time, and man, I've gotten fitter or I've gotten worse. I've slacked off a little bit.
One of the other though, right? You've got a reference point.
And it's sometimes being okay with like, actually, that was last year was pretty crazy, but this next year is going to be better. Having, again, you've got a reference point because you've done it, or you haven't done it.
Yeah.
So that's still a reference point, but at least you have these tools to help us kind of just see into some of those bits that we're not quite willing to visit and expose a little bit. And
Indeed. So key question, by the time this goes live late November, is the Together site going to be up and running by then?
Should be.
Should be.
Let's not put a should be. Let's say yes.
It
will be.
Cool.
It's so easy to just say should or maybe. Yep, it'll be up. There'll be a landing page and just it'll be a nice crafted story.
Yeah.
A few case studies.
Nice.
And yeah, man, it'll be up there. It'll
Love
be
it.
brandcoach.co.nz.
Oof.
Oh, come on, here we go.
Here we go.
Super pumped.
Super pumped. Hey, thank you very much, Ryan. Always a pleasure hanging out with you.
Likewise.
Loved it. Loved the pre-podcast barn me.
Oh, mate, life's a dream with you, Dad.
That's a good way to do it, wasn't it?
I was fearing the food coma, but
no,
it hasn't arrived.
We pushed on through.
That's great.
So good.
Pleasure to be here.
Really appreciate it, Ryan. We'll see you back soon.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, Dave.